Okay, we should be rolling now.
We're live, Steve.
We are live. Okay, I'm just getting some paper because, I like to write down things. I'm still kind of manual sometimes, right? It's been a while, Dietrich, since we've connected, so this is good. And there's been a lot of updates in immigration, and you know what? Like, I spend a lot of time. I spend a lot of time doing consultations with people, so I've become pretty
That's good,
good at,
man.
talking on camera.
So everything is online and remote that you do now, right?
Yeah, although I do have an office now. I got an office in Toronto, just a small one, at a co-working space because working from home just drives me nuts.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
right?
Oh yeah, dude. I sit in Starbucks now and I work from there just to get things
Yeah.
going. Like then you have some like office climate in there. Except I don't hear about Sally, who's always complaining. That's the only thing I don't have.
Yeah, it's good to get out there. And I think separate the home from work. That's a big thing for me.
Yes.
It's like the separation. Otherwise, like, I just get distracted looking at used cars on Facebook Marketplace that I don't need. So
Gotta
right
love
on.
ADHD.
Oh man, I know. It's nuts. So at least it's like it gets me out, gets me exercising. I mean, because I walk there, I bike there even with my dog. Like I'll have her leash, and then I go through like the alleys to bike there, so I'm avoiding like cars and stuff. And she likes it, get her exercise. And my wife does like 12-hour shifts now, so
Nice.
that's like if she's going in for a 12-hour shift, I'm like, I'm going in for a 12-hour shift, and it
There
pushes
we
me
go.
to work a good 12 hours. But yeah.
Right on, man. So I'll just introduce you to my channel. So for those people die ihn noch nicht kennen, das ist Steve. Steve ist ein Immigration Consultant und ich kenne Steve schon seit, I know you since 2017, I believe.
Yeah.
The good old Periscope days.
I was gonna say, yeah, it's been a while, eh?
Crazy, man.
Yeah.
It's almost been 10 years now. So you were actually one of the first that I hit up once I moved to Calgary. I think you and Husan, you were the first ones that I actually came to visit.
That's incredible. I know, and look at how far we've come.
I know, it's crazy, man. So tell me, I know you used to, or you're still an immigration consultant, and I know you always get upset with the system. You're always very frustrated with the system, and I
Yeah.
think you changed your business model. So tell me about the system. What frustrates you the most about this immigration system, or something that you think should be fixed, but it is the way it is.
Do I have to narrow it down to one thing, Dietrich? Because it's about a million things. And we could be here all day if I was complaining about the immigration system. But what is perhaps some of the most frustrating things is there. I think it is with any government process. It's very bureaucratic. So I forget whose famous quote this was, but bureaucrats love to focus on procedure rather than outcomes. And that's exactly what kind of happens. So you've got to make sure that your application's, put together perfectly. It's not missing a translation or any of that stuff. So for me, like coming from an engineering background, that kind of drives me nuts where we're about like, okay, get like 80-90% of the way there. And that's what it should be. And seeing the technology that they use and that they rely on is incredibly frustrating. Like, I don't even want to go into details too much on like how you can submit your data, right? Like you submit an application that is online and you submit it with electronic forms and you are unable to like download a copy of what you've submitted, right? Like, and to obtain a copy of what you've submitted, you need to file what's called an access to information and privacy request with the government, wait at least 30 days, pay a $5 fee nominally, and then you get a digital copy of your entire application. So it's interesting because, so that specific example is like, they really encourage online submissions. In fact, they mandate almost all submissions now are online. And it's like, what's the point in having an online submission process when you don't use any of the benefits of why we do things online? Like, the whole point is to like have a copy of your data and be able to download that so that when you're doing a new application, you can reference it. It takes 30 days to get digital data. Well, that's like, might as well send it in the mail, right? It's almost like sending out a post application. Like you have to take your brain back like 25 years in time. And I've sent a lot of letters. I've been advocating a lot, for changes in the system, trying to get through to the minister, deputies, the six top people at IRCC. Like this is just, it's just wasting our taxpayer dollars. So that frustrates me to see that. I think that's one of the biggest frustrations is the lack of just basic expected kind of technology and competence, and a lack of competence and accountability and transparency. Like all those things are really lacking in the department. That's the most frustrating thing about dealing with immigration.
The punishment is a process, right?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. The punishment is the process. Yeah. Ask anyone who's dealt with it and they're like, oh, like I timed out by like 4 hours and then screwed everything up for 5 months. Like the things just don't make sense, right? The government does not move at the speed of business. They've also, like from a policy perspective, I mean, we could have a greater discussion on that probably another day, but they've totally gutted any of the programs for people who are self-employed, for entrepreneurs. They're not, I've got a guy, he makes over $100,000 a year doing like, he's construction manager, subcontractor, right? But because he's subcontracting, he's doing it through his own company, like really smart, hardworking Ukrainian guy here on an open work permit. And, he's got no path to remaining because they don't acknowledge self-employment as work experience. Like they need to get their heads out of their and like not everybody is going to have T4s, and somebody is, he's creating jobs. He's creating a lot of economic activity. He's working up in Northern Ontario at times doing all that. So it doesn't make any sense. So obviously like slow to update policy is a frustration of mine too. But I could go on. Like add
no, that's okay. That's good, man. Because I know it's you've like since day one, since you became an immigration consultant, I think you were frustrated. I think that's the biggest word about it, right?
100%.
So, and I know that you used to be, I would say, just like every other immigration consultant, that your business model, and recently you have changed. Is that correct? Like your business model?
Yes, I've definitely shifted at least part of the operations. Most immigration consultants, I would say, if not all, they operate from like a representation model. So they represent an applicant, meaning they take all the information, all the data from the applicant, address history, travel history, compile it all with the help of an assistant and their office staff, and then they submit the application on behalf of the applicant. Well, part of the reason that representation can be quite frustrating is that IRCC only allows one representative on the file at once. So, Dietrich, if somebody's applying for PR, like the representative's going to get everything about updates about the application, updates about this and that. Like, why can't they have two users? Like, why can't the applicant access their own data as well? Right?
Wow.
So this is one of the frustrating things, right? Like they can't even figure it out like a joint bank account or something. So you can only have one, authorized representative. Either that's yourself or an authorized rep. And you can, switch on and off and change your rep at any time. But so that's frustrating because I say this, and some people disagree with me, some people agree with me. The best representative is going to be yourself. It really will. You know your address history the best. You know the genuineness of your relationship. You just sometimes need to be pointed in the right direction, need some guidance, right? So that then brings in how I shifted to doing like more of a review-based and consultation-based practice, where I encourage a lot of, DIY applicants, like do it yourself, like there's a lot of people that do, the firms, they arrange recruitment and those sorts of things. But I think it's, find your own job, if you get hired and you need to do the process, watch my YouTube channel, watch my videos. I'll show you how to do it.
By the way, his YouTube channel will be in the link in the description as well.
Yeah, so that's kind of how I've shifted. I've gone to more of like a review-based model, which I'm not spending time like doing the administrative work as much, which I love. And I love, dealing with the complexity of looking at an entire nearly complete application and saying, you know what, this is what it's missing, or that's an unacceptable translation, or, oh, I've seen big issues where you like don't include this as part of the application, or you're not eligible for this, you've got to go get this done. That's kind of what I like, because it's a higher level thinking, and you get to meet more people with a review and a consultation based model, and you meet people from very interesting countries. I've had the privilege of Burundi, St. Kitts and Nevis, Kyrgyzstan, like everywhere, right, all over the world. So it's nice. Whereas when you're doing representation work as well, more so you find that a consultant from that particular community, like a German consultant, may be dealing a lot with Germans because they speak the same language. But with the advances in technology and artificial intelligence, people can really put together a pretty strong application, in my view, especially Gen Z and millennials. And that is going to be the future, right? So that's kind of how I've shifted my model. And then, of course, on my YouTube channel, like I do, it's littered with ads, but that's because it's a monetization stream as well, and it's long form content. And I just recently had a meeting with a guy who's going to help me basically put out some more videos, focus on editing, and then get some like affiliates in there too, because a lot of people that come into Canada, they get set up with banking, and they need to know, hey, if I want to buy Bitcoin in Canada, what's a good way to do it? And there's other ways to then make money off that you're not making so much money off the administrative work, which is my least favorite part of it in the representation side. So that's kind of how I've shifted my model, and that's I'm enjoying it now a lot more, and it gives me more time to write those letters to Mark Carney, to Lena Dean, and
don't get me started, man.
Yeah, I know. Me neither. It's
going to be another Zoom call for itself.
Right on.
Oh boy. Man, actually, I like your business model, like the way you explained it last time and even now. It's basically the client itself fills out their own application, but they have questions. They're like, hey, Steve, have I done this correctly? And then they basically just book a consultation call with you, and you just guide them through it. Is that correct? Like, do you understand that correctly?
100%, or a series of consultations. Like, if usually there's like a couple checkpoints within a PR application. Like, okay, what a lot of people fail to understand is most PR applications, Dietrich, you can't apply for. First, you need to qualify. That's the Canadian point-based system, right? So first, they need to register. Generally, it's called an expression of interest, or submit a profile of expression. And that should be reviewed. You should make sure that you're entering everything correctly, because again, their systems are not really intuitive. But that's something that someone, they would pay for, like a first touch point. And then I would be able to look at what they're declaring in the profile and say, oh, get ready. You're going to need to get your, police clearance from Germany. Have you lived anywhere else since the age of 18 for more than 6 months? And they say, oh, the USA. I say, go get your FBI rap sheet. And so they, they start getting all this stuff kind of together in anticipation. And then if they get an invitation, great. They then have a lot of the documentation already, like in advance, that I've guided them with. And then when they're ready to submit, some people will book again on like invitation to apply and want some more guidance, and then again for finalized submission. And I did try and productize it, like that would seem to make sense, for different types of applications. But families can be single, they can be 5 people, they can be 10 people, they can be multiple citizenships. So it really varies on complexity. So that's why I've had to just go with an hourly model. with that, because
Yeah, that makes sense.
you'd have just way too many products. It just doesn't make any sense. I'm
Yeah,
sure
you can't
yeah,
charge $100, let's say, or whatever your rate is for a single guy, and the same for a family of 10. It just wouldn't be fair.
I'm sure you do the same thing in construction. Like, you can't just say like a deck is the price of a deck, right? Or
Yeah,
all decks are created differently and different sizes. I mean, you can try and go by square footage, by material, right? And then by, hourly. But that's exactly kind of what I'm in right now, is like, yeah, I've
yeah,
got to keep it to the hour. And that works.
that makes sense, man. That's exciting. So, like, when people before the model, like what most immigration consultants do, is what I understand, is basically if they have an application, they pay the consultant X amount of dollars, and then the consultant handles everything. This way, if they only need 10 hours, let's say 10 hours or 5 hours, I don't know what the average
Yeah.
amount is, but they save quite a bit of money that way too, right?
They save money, and they also retain access to their data.
Right.
So
So they
like,
always understand then where their application is at. They are actually the one that are informed, and you just guide them in the right direction.
rather than being a middleman, right? Because
I
that's
like that.
kind of what never really made sense to me, is like, wait, so when I get into immigration, and it's exciting because I like helping business owners. I love helping business owners. I love entrepreneurs. I'm like you, Dietrich. Like, they're the backbone of any capitalist country, any
Yes.
market economy. The job creators. I don't like bureaucracy. I don't like inefficiency. So, but yeah, when I got into it and I realized, okay, well, like 98% are, workers, and they need this and that. And I looked at how other people were doing immigration. I was like, wait, you're just collecting the data, then you're re-entering the data into like government. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's a very disjointed process. And I said, they will know how to spell their hometown better than I will if it's
Right.
some obscure town in Germany with the strange characters, right? So yeah, that, and it just doesn't make sense in that way for me. Plus, it's like, they are, like I say, they're best representatives. They know the information the best. We know it from like a high level. We got to do our CPDs every year. We got to pay the college. We got to pay our licensing fees. And immigration doesn't look at your application more favorably whether or not there's an immigration rep on file. Like, it literally is just like the difference in a user account. They don't, representatives can obviously prepare a nice application, with all these tools that are now like increasingly available to the public, right?
Mm-hmm.
Resizing PDFs, translation, all those sorts of things. So
ChatGPT.
exactly. Like, you know what? It would be better for me to just tell people like the prompts that'll help you to, that you will need for a good application, or, how to get the right, case law. Now, there are, I would say, for some cases, representation does make sense. If it's highly complex, they have a lot of refusals, and they're overcoming things like criminal inadmissibility, where you're doing a lot of, referencing the case law and things like that. But that might be like less than 1% of cases, honestly, really. It's the 99%, the majority are pretty straightforward.
Nice. What would you say at the moment? What are the best chances for someone to come to Canada? Like, what are they? Is Immigration Canada looking at certain things different than others? Like, I know you mentioned a couple of months ago that French speaking, like, what do you call it? Francophone? What do you call that?
Oh, Francophone mobility program.
There we go. There was that program, like, where they highly favor that one compared to others. Like, what would you say at the moment, now that we are in July or August 2025? What are the best chances for someone coming here?
I can definitely go into that. But before I do, I want to segue into the fact that there's something like 5 million temporary residents right now in the country.
Okay.
And there's only 400,000 spots for PR every year. So I find myself telling a lot of people that on a call, like, you realize the government really screwed up. Like, Trudeau's government opening the floodgates for international students from diploma mills, like really bad schools, and low skilled, low wage jobs because of their reaction during COVID, when instead of having somebody work at a hotel or a restaurant, just pay them $2,000 a month to stay at home, like with the serve or whatever, the benefits during COVID. So all that really screwed up the low wage entry level labor market, which is why we're seeing like 25-30% unemployment amongst Gen Z, because they go to get their entry level job at McDonald's and they have no chance competing against someone who's 35-40 years old from India, the Philippines, and they've got a bachelor degree in accounting, and they're on a closed work permit, and they're not going to miss a day at that job because their future in this country depends on it, versus a 22-year-old kid who shows up late, maybe a little bit high. That's, can you blame employers? You can't really blame employers, especially those that rely on, like, I would say, just above minimum wage labor. But that should have never been allowed to happen to the scale that it did, because now we're dealing with the repercussions of it. And these 5 million people that are here temporarily, they anticipated they'd have a path to PR, but it's going to be about 10% per year of them transitioning. So now your question is, how do you be in that top 10%?
Yes.
And this is part of my frustration with, again, the current government and the policy. It's not being an entrepreneur. It's not making $250,000 a year as a software engineer. And it is like, because income doesn't matter on what you're making in the current framework, which I believe it should be. If the goal of an economic immigrant in the act in Parliament says those who can become economically established, I think one of the best determining factors of economic establishment is someone's tax returns while they're in Canada, right? That to me makes sense, but that's not a factor that they care about. What matters right now, for the most part, is French. And Carney campaigned on increasing Francophone immigration outside Quebec by 16%, so even more. I could go through and do a screen share if you'd like, and I could show you like the different draws, or I could just talk about it. But they
It's up to
basically,
you, whatever you find is best for the viewer.
yeah, I think it should record. But I think it would kind of help people, because I like to kind of demonstrate it.
For sure.
It's like it is, speaking French. I say it all the time. If somebody's bilingual, English and French, they can probably get their PR even while sitting overseas without even getting Canadian work experience.
Wow.
Yeah, which is a little bit too much. Like, in my view, it's a little bit too easy, because we've got, you got people who have been here for a long time, people that are working, people that are, and then they're unable to transition. So it's a little bit hard. Express entry draws. So like I said, it's all dependent on scores. And you can see the most recent score was 475. What does that mean? I mean, you can always calculate your CRS score, and it's based on a bunch of different factors. Obviously, income isn't one of them, but I wish it was. I think it should be. So you go through and you can calculate. It's looked at your skills, your education, language, work experience, that sort of thing, right?
Yeah.
One of my issues with CRS is that all work experience is kind of created equal. So $17 an hour skilled work experience at Tim Hortons as a food service supervisor is equivalent to somebody who is a construction manager making over $100,000 a year.
Wow.
Like they view the skill level is the same. It's both considered skill work. A cook, a line cook, is the same as a chef. A software engineer is the same as an administrative assistant. That to me is problematic, very problematic.
Yes.
But when you look at the rounds of invitations, and this is what you want to do when you want to try and evaluate your competitiveness for express entry. You see these scores, and these are the dates that the draws happened, and then this is the round type that it was, and they brought in different categories, healthcare and things like that. But the CRS score of the lowest ranked candidate, this gives you an idea of kind of what Canada's looking for. Ignore the provincial nominee programs because there's like 10 different provinces and 3 territories, and that would be a subject matter for a whole other video. But you can see that Canadian experience class is 518, which is pretty high. And healthcare and social services, it dropped down to 475. What that means is that, if you've got experience in these healthcare occupations, you don't need to be as competitive as anyone in the Canadian experience class. So they are preferential towards some specific occupations. So
the lower the number, the better it is, or the higher the number, the better it is?
For someone trying to immigrate, the lower the number, the better it is. Like so
basically you don't need as many points in order to get in. So for 788, you need way more points than for 475.
100%. Exactly.
Okay.
Like, Dietrich, if I were to calculate my points, well, because it's self-employed, I don't even qualify probably for Canadian experience class, but
you got to leave.
Someone like me speaks perfect English, like no French, bachelor degree, I'd probably be like low 400s.
Wow.
So like, yeah, like it is competitive. And some of the things don't really make sense. And like I said, within healthcare and social services, there's a big difference. Doctors are included in here, but so are pharmacy assistants, which are basically like not even a regulated occupation, just someone who's assisting a pharmacist, the $18 to $20 an hour, right? So there's a lot they need to fix, but this can give you an idea that for all Canadian skilled experience looked at equally, 518 is very challenging. Like you've got to be under 30, master's degree, perfect English, maybe 2 years of skilled work experience in Canada, and maybe even 1 year of skilled work experience abroad. Like it's tough to get above 500. Like I said, I'm like low 400s. Now you see healthcare, it went higher here, but only because they only drew 500. So they invited less people. All right. So you've got to look at this and kind of take it with a grain of salt and really look at the invitations issued and the CRS score. But here's what I find atrocious. What happened March 21st, 2025. French language proficiency went down to 379. Okay.
But qu'est-ce que c'est, and I'm qualified.
Exactly. I mean, I did a hypothetical calculation, and this is what really frustrated me. So to qualify for express entry, you either got to have a year of skilled work experience in Canada, or you've got to have a year of skilled work experience abroad, okay, in another country. So you could, as long as it's not a Canadian experience class, if it's French language or, the healthcare ones, you could be overseas, okay, and get invited to apply for PR. Well, we already have a population and a housing crisis.
Wow.
Why they're not focusing on people who are actually in Canada is strange. But what this means, 379 with French language proficiency, I did a hypothetical scenario checking the score of an 80-year-old man, an 80-year-old divorcee. He's divorced, okay? And he basically retired, but in the last 10 years, he picked up 3 years of skilled work experience working at a cafe just before he retired. And he has a 2-year diploma that he got from the 1970s, in VCR repair, okay? But he speaks perfect English and French. That guy would be at a score of like 382, which means that's how low they're going, inviting people who speak French, right?
That's insane.
That is insane. And meanwhile, you'll see people like I mentioned earlier, the Ukrainian guy working as a construction manager, like he's already in Canada working. He's working. He's, paying taxes, getting paid. He's proven that he's economically established, but it's like, why would the government want to go invite this 80-year-old man? The only requirement the 80-year-old man actually needs to meet that would be different than someone in Canada would be they have to show they've got settlement funds, enough funds to settle in Canada, which for a single applicant, they consider $15,000. Dietrich,
Wow.
you and I are living in Canada. We know how fast an 80-year-old is going to burn through $15,000 in this country. Like, that's maybe four months, right? After
Maybe.
rent, and they got to buy a vehicle, and they're going to be paying $4,000 a year in insurance premiums because of their age. It doesn't really make sense. And you see, they did a lot of French language at the beginning of the year. 4,500, 7,500, 6,500. So I say it all the time. If French people just want to earn PR and they speak English, they've got the easiest path. They can probably do it while they're sitting in France.
Wow.
So yeah, that's a bit of a frustration with the current program right now. But I don't want to spend too much time like going into the technicals about it.
No, this makes sense. It's actually, I appreciate that, because I moved here with my parents. My parents did the application. That was back in, I think we started in 2004, and it was obviously a point system. But we also had to go through a medical examination. We actually were invited, and it wasn't all doctors. There was only certain doctors that were allowed to do that in Germany. So we had to go take a whole physical, check the lungs, like X-ray, you name it, like everything had to be done. And then you were able.
Oh,
they
yeah.
still have that?
They still have that, you know, like, and
okay.
I should say, like, full disclosure, an 80-year-old, they would probably, like, I'm just proving that they met the eligibility.
Right.
You know,
okay. Yeah, it makes sense.
Right? Like they were eligible. They would have been invited. They would technically take a spot from someone. Now, once you pass eligibility, like points, do you have enough points? Did you claim the right amount of points? Then you've got to go through police checks and health checks. So yeah, it's very unlikely that an 80-year-old man would pass the medical, but you never know. It could be healthy, could be really healthy and pass the medical, but he's going to come here and then just not work, right? There's no benefit they can really add to our economy. So the health checks are still there, but yeah, it was just to prove a point. It doesn't matter. The guy could have been 80, but basically anyone above the age of 45, that's when you get no more points for age. So anyone from the age of 45 to 80 with perfect bilingual English and French and some federal skilled work experience and like a 2-year degree or diploma, they would be above 380. So that's pretty wild. And 50,000 in cash, right? So that's, you know, and that's a PR path. But then they've also really made it easy to come work in Canada if you speak French too. So, you know, there's basically overall, there's two main, let's say, programs in Canada. There's the permanent resident programs, and then there's the temporary resident programs, like coming here as a worker, student, visitor. Usually, most people, besides perfectly bilingual English and French speakers, most people have to come in first as a temporary resident, earn enough Canadian work experience to then be able to transition to PR, right? To then have a pathway, because they do get points for, you know, a year, 2 years of skilled work experience in Canada. They get points for a Canadian education, which is why the international student population under Trudeau like quadrupled, because it's just this cash cow. Now, back to like the temporary resident thing. So a lot of people are looking to get on like a work status, right? And it's great for people under the age of 35 who are German, let's say, because we have like the working holiday visa. You can come on an open work permit. That's why you see a lot of like Germans working in like Whistler and things like that. And it's a reciprocal program that Canada has with like, I think maybe 20 other countries. But you can only get that for 1 or 2 years, and it's age limited, and you can't bring a spouse over on it. So there's some challenges to it. But a lot of people always are asking about LMIAs as well. And LMIAs, you know, for for purposes of like the temporary resident program, there's two ways to getting a work permit in Canada. There's actually only two programs. It's the temporary foreign worker program and the international mobility program. The temporary foreign worker program, that's showing that you've got a labor shortage. That's a pain. That's the LMIA. That's advertising for 30 days. That's on 5 different platforms and applying to Service Canada. It's like the same thing in America where they have to hire, they have to advertise they're trying to hire a foreigner and they can't find an American to fill the job.
So basically the employer, the shop needs somebody like right now, and they can't find anybody. So they advertise, you said like 30 days in Canada, basically, then they apply for the government. And then if that still doesn't work, then they can reach out and actually get somebody from out of the country, correct?
That is correct. And yeah,
okay.
And it is a very laborious process. Like it is 30 days of advertising, but you've got to do it on the Government of Canada job bank, which is why you see a lot of fake fraud jobs posted on the job bank, because some people, they sell these job offers as opportunities to work in Canada, right? But and we can talk about that later too, but there's you've got to advertise on 3 different platforms, and then depending on the job too. So if you're trying to find like a carpenter and you're willing to pay the carpenter above the median wage in Alberta, like you need a really, skilled, experienced guy, you're willing to pay like $40 an hour. That would be a high wage LMIA. And they would say, oh, because it's a high wage job, Canadians might be willing to relocate to Alberta. Like unemployed Canadians from Ontario, they might want to come to Alberta for a $40 an hour job. So you need to advertise on a nationwide job board. So you have to advertise on Indeed, and you have to advertise on another one, like one that specially targets that industry, right? And then you've got to do on the job bank. And then any of the Canadian and PRs that match, that are looking for that job, you've got to invite them to apply and keep records of all this recruitment. And then you've got to send in to Service Canada, who approves the LMIAs. You've got to send in not just the recruitment efforts, but you have to show that you can afford to pay $40 an hour. So you've got to give them your T2 100s and 125s. You've got to give them your tax returns. And you've got to include sometimes like PD7As and payroll records to show like I can afford to pay $40 an hour. I'm actively operational. Here's my business license. It's really a pain in the. And then you wait like 6 to 9 months for a decision that says yes or no. Can you hire a foreign worker?
Wow.
And if they say yes, then that person can take it. And Germans, people who are ETA, they only need an ETA to come to Canada to visit. They can apply for a work permit on entry, but then they've got to bring the proof that they're able to do the role of a carpenter, right? So work experience letters and whatnot. Basically, the temporary foreign worker program is a real pain in the ass. It should only be used as a last resort. And it went off the rails in 2021 because they eliminated all the guardrails. They said, we're going to allow Tim Hortons to hire like 30% foreign workers for like $17 an hour positions. So there you go. Then people are like bringing over people from Southeast Asia and South Asia for $17 an hour jobs, survival jobs that really should be kind of done by underemployed, unemployed, and the Gen Z of the country, right? Or Gen Z, I should say, the American. So that's kind of what happened. And then people were just selling a lot of these because they're selling the opportunity and the dream to come into Canada. And it's unfortunate, but the temporary foreign worker program really should be reserved for, I think, like high wage, high skilled, like really unique skill set, tough to fill jobs. And a lot of these business models where the Tim Hortons is in a rural area and they can't depend on local labor, then maybe there shouldn't be a Tim Hortons there. Maybe there's actually no like business model to have the Tim Hortons there. They shouldn't be making their money off essentially slave labor, right?
Yes.
So that's a temporary foreign worker program. And then if you don't have to, if you have another way through the international mobility program, take it, because that's a heck of a lot easier, Plus, on top of the TFWP, the employer's got to pay $1,000, and they've really clamped down on it. Like you can't get LMIAs now that are less, like I said, less than $34 an hour in areas of high unemployment. But That's why if you go on the job bank, which is one of the recruitment platforms that they must use for an LMIA, you'll find a lot of food service supervisors for Tim Hortons, store managers for Tim Hortons advertisements, and food counter attendant, and basically all these $17 an hour jobs, they're advertising them, Dietrich, for $36.10 an hour in Ontario. And you know why they are? Because they're trying to get around the low wage requirements. There's no way they're going to pay a food service supervisor $75,000 a year. So what's going to happen?
Better be good donut salesman.
Yeah, and that's not even part of their duties. Their duties, like the median wage is like $17 for that occupation. They're not. There's no way they're paying 36. What they're doing is then they're then selling that piece of paper, that LMIA. Yeah, and that person's probably subsidizing their wages or that sort of thing. It's awful. But the International Mobility Program allows an employer to basically bypass the entire LMIA process and hire somebody, offer a job to a foreigner, based on these various LMIA exemptions. Okay, so one of the exemptions is the Francophone Mobility Program, but for an employer, the difference is like they pay $230 as opposed to $1,000 with the LMIA. They don't got to put their tax returns. They don't got to advertise for 30 days because it's for the greater Canadian interests. Perfect example of an LMIA exemption was I brought over, there's an LMIA exemption called C50. That's for religious leaders. I brought over a pastor, okay, for a Baptist church to work in Nova Scotia. He didn't require an LMIA. Why? Because it serves a charitable purpose. It's the advancement of religion. And you don't require an LMIA if it has those, what they've determined to have like spin-off benefits in Canada. So that's an example of an exemption. The church, all they had to do was submit the job offer through the employer portal, pay the $230, and then he applied for his work permit through my assistance. But same thing with Francophone mobility. If you want to hire a carpenter, you hire a carpenter, and you submit the offer. You want to hire this carpenter through C16 Francophone mobility, but the carpenter on their work permit application has to prove that they speak a little bit of French, and we're talking a very little bit. Like the proficiency level, CLB 5, speaking and listening, out of 10, and CLB's out of 10, right? Like Dietrich, you and I are CLB 10 English speakers, like 100%. CLB 10, and we're talking the bare minimum is CLB 5, speaking and listening in French, and that's it. So very basic, and they just need a job offer from an employer. And you know what? It's not subject to the wage requirements of an LMIA either, which can be a little bit problematic. But you could hire a carpenter for less than the median wage of a carpenter if you needed one under this program. They say, the officer is supposed to look at is the wage reasonable, but in those LMIA exemptions in there's also all the free trade agreements, right? So like American engineers can come work in Canada, Canadian engineers can go work in the States. USMCA, Canada, Colombia has a free trade agreement. We have one with Chile, we have one with Europe. But I think it would be a lot better if we got rid of our supply management on dairy and allowed European dairy into Canada, because that is restricting, I think, freedom of movement between let's say the continent of Europe and or the European Union and Canadians, because it's a point of contention, right? Like we can't import like European butter. It's ridiculous. So it's basically an effective tariff, and that's why Trump's so pissed off right now. Because they're just it's
a cartel, man. We're the only dairy cartel in the world. It's ridiculous, man.
And you're like, this stuff is just not. It's not benefiting us. It's just to protect 30,000 dairy farmers. I'm just going to show you quick for your viewers as well, the where those LMIA exemptions are. LMIA exemption codes be a little bit challenging to find sometimes, but there it is. Okay. So yeah, this is like I said, there's the temporary foreign worker program. LMIA is a real pain. And then there's the international mobility program. And these are all the codes, like all the different types. Canada International Non-Trade Agreements. You can see like unique work situations, airline personnel. Yeah, of course, like they probably you don't need to get an LMIA for like a pilot who's coming into Canada temporarily, they're not going to wait 9 months for that. But yeah, there's the free trade agreements. CETA is like a European one. So like CETA independent professionals, and then this would tell you what this means. This is all the details about it. Like they're coming in to work for a contract between the professional's EU employer and a Canadian enterprise, like prearranged employment. These kind of agreements is what would allow, if Volkswagen has, a manufacturing plant in Ontario of some sort, and they have to transfer, specialized knowledge workers, German engineers to come to Canada. Yeah, they don't need an LMIA for that because the greater interests of it are like Canadian cooperation. And then, yeah, we've got a Canada-Ukraine free trade agreement now. But yeah, in here you'll find the Francophone mobility program, which the requirements are just too easy, and they're going to get rid of it eventually because I met someone who didn't speak any French at all, and within like a matter of 3 months they got to a CLB5 in French. So and then that's how they were able to then extend their stay in Canada. They didn't want to go home. So I guess the main point of this call is if you want to immigrate to Canada, just learn French at this point. And it is a challenging time right now, like I said, because of just the large numbers and all the competition. Canada used to be kind of like, I would say 2 or 3 to 1, like maybe 2 or 3 temporary residents that came in, one would transition to PR. Whereas now it's like 10 are coming in and only 1 is transitioning to PR. We kind of like lowered the walls. Like it used to be tough place to get in and to get on work. But if you did, you had a way to stay, whereas now there's just so much randomness in the process. They're changing the rules. They're switching the goalposts overnight. People are spending a year to qualify for certain programs, and then they're removing the knock saying, yeah, we don't need concrete finishers, or we do need concrete finishers. So it's creating a lot of stress in the system. So if people are eager to immigrate to Canada, sometimes I say, really think about what you've got back home, and is it worth it making this transition at this time during uncertainty? You could, lose a lot of money, you could spend a lot of time, you might have to go home. I think it's going to take about 6 to 12 months to kind of get to some kind of, regular cadence. But if someone wants to, just come in and work, Francophone mobility program is one of the easier ones. Or the charitable exemptions, like I said, religious worker, there's free trade agreements. That depends on, your nationality. And yeah.
Man, that's very informative. Like, I'll be honest with you, I'm so out of touch with this whole system. I just get frustrated with the government, and I'd like to complain about them, and then that's about
me too.
Right?
Yeah.
I guess that makes 2 of us. Well, there's many more, I guess. But it's very interesting, man, how things have changed. Because I remember, like I said, in 2004, certain things I think I was 14 at that time. So there was certain things that I still remember, but it's been so long ago. And then when my wife moved over here in 2012, I had to do all the paperwork basically to import her, or if you want to call that, right? And then there's inside of Canada or application outside of Canada. So we had to learn which one is better, and then how does the whole thing work. And it's very complicated. So I'm glad there's people like you that are actually able to, help out when I can do my own application if I wanted to. And I have questions. Hey, Steve, can you look over this? What am I missing? You do that basically on a consultant fee or an hourly basis. And then if nothing is missing, then I can just submit everything.
Exactly. Yeah. And it reminds me of, this I helped, I assisted a Belgian once. She booked a consultation with me, and then she's CLB5 in French. I said, "You're Belgian, right?" She speaks a little bit of French. Like Europeans, they speak like 3, 4 different languages
Yeah.
usually, right?
We had to
So
learn French in grade 5, I believe, or no, grade 7. Sorry, I think it was mandatory to take French.
yeah, and she was like, her working holiday was expired or like done now, and she was on a visitor record. She's like, "What do I do?" I was like, "Oh, just go get a French test, prove that you speak CLB5, go get this offer from the place she wanted to work at." I was like, and then just apply. You can, and even as a a European, if you've got your ETA travel, you can apply on entry. So she could just like fly out and then come back in and say, "I've got a job offer." They look up the code in the system and they're like, "Oh yeah, okay, let's see your French results. Let's see this. Okay, good, approved."
Wow.
And yeah, it's really, it's a bureaucratic, convoluted process, but they make it that way. They really do. There's no one has I'd say that's the only explanation for it. I think they don't want to admit that they have to deal with a large intake and they have a hard time making it merit based, and it just would require a lot of work and a lot of intelligent people actually doing their job to make it the best system in the world, right? It's selecting for the best people and having caps from certain countries so that we encourage diversity and but also like integration is important. They don't, they're not doing any of that. And I think they're like, they don't want to admit that it's a bit of a lottery, but these uncertainties and these problems and these delays and the bureaucratic red tape, some people just time out, they lose an opportunity. That's the problem. And that bothers me because that's not merit. That's like,
Yeah.
that's chance, right? And yeah, the system needs a lot of work for sure. And yeah.
So keep writing those letters, Steve.
Well, it's a lot of work, I tell you. I mean, but basically I demanded a meeting with Carney, and his office got back, but they declined my request for a meeting, but they did then forward my correspondence to the immigration minister. And she didn't get back yet, but I've been, emailing her office, and I think they're all, on vacation. It's summer.
Yeah.
They're government workers. I mean, they they don't work anyways. They're certainly not working in the summer.
Dude, I was trying to explain to my wife. I said, if a politician loses his job, he's the most useless person in the world. There's nothing that he can do. They have zero skills.
Yep.
Just peddling influence. That's all they do.
Exactly. And they just, I'm like, why? Like, so many stakeholders are like, wait, why would you do this? Like, the funny thing about the Francophone Mobility Program is that the Canadian interest is to like encourage people who speak French to like settle in Anglophone parts of Canada, because the requirement of it is the job offers actually outside of Quebec. So you could never hire a French-speaking carpenter to work in Quebec under the Francophone Mobility Program, but you could hire them to work in any other province.
Like in Alberta.
And a CLB5 is like I said, you can learn it in 2 to 3 months. No way it's a mother tongue. No way you're ever going to be using that thing again, that language again. You're just going to be using it to literally get your work permit. And then now you're competing in the Canadian labor market. So I don't think they should have gone that crazy, ridiculous on the requirements. Like, they should have actually encouraged maybe primary French speakers and put it through some, but have caps on it. Like, you don't just want to flood the market now with a bunch of unskilled work and CLB5 French speakers. It does no good. And it's the fact that it's in our economic pathway on the PR side is something that kind of really frustrates me. I'm okay with like, specific pilot programs that, might be like family members of like Ukrainians in Canada, let's say, because of the war. If there's like a sponsorship program through that, fine. Like, have caps on it, have certain little boutique programs. But that's what French should be. It shouldn't be taking up like 20% of our economic, the best and brightest, because in Alberta, you don't care if your plumber speaks French
He speaks French
or
regardless.
yeah, right? Like you don't it doesn't matter, right? Like so
For my viewers who don't understand, we usually say when somebody's swearing, then we call that speaking French.
oh yeah, I pardon
So
my French.
yeah, I pardon my French. So that's why I say like the plumber is most likely speaking French regardless.
Well, I don't know if that's IRCC's definition of a CLB5 deficiency.
Is there a test for that one?
Yeah. But yeah, that's those are some things just about immigration right now. And if you got any more questions, like I'm happy to chat and answer for your viewers. I know we're already at like an hour, Dietrich. I could
No, I
chat.
appreciate it, man.
Yeah.
You also gave me a code. I think it's Dietrich25. I'll put that in the link description. So if you guys decided to go with Steve, make sure you enter that code as well, and then we can. Yeah, that helps every party here. And yeah, thank you very much for your time, Steve. I really appreciate it. I like the way you think. Like it's outside the box, and that's what I like about you. It's like never
Well, likewise.
never just
Right back at you, man. Like that's
yeah,
why
that's the
I've
thing.
always kept in touch since 2017. And even though we're on, across 2 different time zones right now, and I have at many times been maybe 9 different time zones when you're back in Germany or whatever. But we've always kept in touch because it's like, yeah, there's always like that entrepreneurial spirit and wanting to improve and disrupt, and like, hey, this is a problem, and like it frustrates me. So it's like, well, what can I do? Like, well, I can write letters and I can go work in the government, but I know that's not the right solution. It's make it easier for those people that are struggling. And one of the big reasons why I like the YouTube channel and why I'm bringing on like a videographer to kind of really help me commit to putting out like 2 to 3 informative videos a week, everything from spousal sponsorship to any, like all the different exemptions for the work permit applications, because there's so many. All that is because like Canada's my only home. I got nowhere else to go. So I've got to fix this country, right? And I think one of the ways to fix it is by selecting better people to become permanent residents. And the way to make that more fair, in my view, when the government isn't fair, is democratize access to the information. Provide everyone with that information. And that's how you eliminate gatekeeping. That's how you eliminate fraud. That's how you eliminate a fake carpenter paying $75,000 to get a fake carpenter job and taking a spot from an actual deserving applicant who knows what the hell he's doing, but is unwilling to pay 75 grand for a fake job, right? Because when it comes to the government, like they'll have a queue. They're like, oh, we got like a carpenter. We transitioned a carpenter to PR, but it's like a fake one. So that's the problem with the way I see it. Is it can be better for Canada and lead to a better selection by democratizing access to that information. Kind of like Elon Musk makes all his patents public. That is what I would honestly love to do, is just fully just have like the most comprehensive YouTube education channel for Canadian immigration out there, like the Khan Academy of immigration. And as you mentioned, yeah, the discount code, make sure that it is case sensitive for sure.
So it has to be capital letters.
Yeah, and I put all my representation pricing public on my website too, because I believe in that. And it's there, it's in Canadian dollars. And if they do book, an eligibility or that sort of thing, I always credit that against a representation fee. So like if they meet with me and then they're like, you know what, I just want you to handle the whole thing, sure, I'll take it off. But if they're like, I know what I'm doing, I watched your videos, right? I watched you with Dietrich. We had a good time. So yeah, it was really good to connect with you, Dietrich.
Yeah, thanks, man. Again, thanks for your time. I love what you do, man. Keep doing what you're doing. Think outside the box and let's beat the system. Let's make Canada great again.
I would agree. The only thing that sucks is it's the worst acronym, MCGA. Like, why can't Canada start with a vowel, right? Like, why can't it be make Europe great again. Mega.
Or let's make Alberta great again. You know, like mega. There we go.
Yeah, make Alberta. Yeah. It's just mega though. That's America's. So
I know we can't steal that. I know there's no acronym. Like, I don't know. Trump is really like, he's a master when it comes to marketing. Dude, he's a genius. Like for the viewers, love him or hate him, the guy is a genius. He knows what he's doing. He's already like 10 steps ahead. Like whatever he's doing now, he was planning last year in spring.
He's playing like 10-dimensional chess. This guy.
He is, yeah. And everybody's playing to his hands because, like I said again, he's not a politician. He's a businessman. And that gives him the advantage because he understands how they think and he understands how we think. So, but anyway, that's so much about politics.
All right, guys. Have a good one.
Thanks, Steve. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.